What one is this?
Easy go, will you let me go? Bismillah, no, we will not let you go. Let him go! Bismillah.
Good morning. I'm Krista Bessinger, Vice President of Investor Relations at Twitter. Welcome to Twitter's 2021 Analyst Day. It's great to have you joining us for this virtual event. Before we get started, I wanted to mention that statements made in today's presentation contain forward-looking information, including long-term MDAU and revenue goals. Actual results could differ materially from what we present today. The information you see right now on your screen gives more details about some of the risks regarding the forward-looking statements we'll make today, as well as our risk factors. We have also provided information regarding certain key metrics and non-GAAP financial measures. Additional information can be found in our filings with the SEC, which are also posted on the Investor Relations section of our website at investor.twitterinc.com. During today's event, we'll provide details on how we plan to accelerate innovation and growth. Jack will start with opening remarks to frame the day, and then members of our senior management team will go deep in their area of expertise, touching on our top company objectives. And after that, our CFO, Ned Siegel, will wrap up with financial highlights. We really want to make this event as interactive as possible, so we have 3 Q&A sessions scheduled during the day. Our first Q&A session will come after the recorded remarks from our product, legal, and policy leads. So we'll take your questions then related specifically to our consumer product and our public policies. Our second Q&A session will come after our leads from sales, revenue, product, and technology. So we'll take your questions related to those topics then. And then during our final Q&A session, all of our speakers will come together to take your questions. We will also be live tweeting throughout this event and taking questions asked on Twitter. So please follow along and tweet us at @TwitterIR using the hashtag #TWTRAnalystDay. We might also have time to take a few questions submitted via email. So please email us at ir@twitter.com to have your questions considered. And finally, just a note that shortly after the end of today's presentation, we'll be making a replay of the event available. And we'll also be posting downloadable slides to our Investor Relations website shortly after the end of each segment. And with that, I would love to turn it over to our CEO, Jack Dorsey.
What's happening, everyone? Thanks for spending some time with us today. I wanted to start with a very simple question. Why Twitter? Take a moment to imagine all of the conversations happening in the world right now. People are talking with each other in person or remotely through text, audio, and even through video like this. A lot of these conversations are private. Some of them, like this one, are public, accessible to anyone who knows how to find them. But why do people want to talk in public in the first place? It's because public conversation has proven to be the fastest way to spread an idea. It's the fastest way to learn how other people are thinking. It's the fastest way to see the common problems facing all of us. And it's the fastest path to understanding that ultimately, we're all in this together. Most public conversation today is made possible by the internet. It transcends every border, every language, and every culture. It has the potential to reach every single person on this planet, and someday soon across multiple planets. Twitter has been a part of the internet's public conversation layer for 15 years. It's our purpose and reason for being. We believe public conversation is important, and if you're here watching this, you probably believe it too. But that's not why you're here. You're here to answer a different question. Why should I believe Twitter's role in public conversation and its business as a result is growing? That's the question we're focused on answering today. But why don't we start with why folks don't believe in us? It comes down to 3 critiques. We're slow, we're not innovative, and we're not trusted. First, we agree we've been slow. If you compare us with our peers in the market, this is especially stark. If you compare us with ourselves over the past few years, though, development velocity is demonstrably better. Why is that? We've been working ourselves out of a significant deficit for years. A lot of this was technical. Some of it was incorrect prioritization and how we organized around those priorities. In most cases, we've had to take the hard path of prioritizing fewer initiatives and rebuilding from scratch, which is never easy, especially as we have a system at scale, which we have to run in parallel. The best example of this work is our decision to rebuild our core ad server. We knew it would take a lot of time. We knew it would block and delay working on our performance advertising products. And we knew we would have to scale well beyond our current traffic. And it worked. We now have an ad server that significantly accelerates our ability to ship revenue products faster and far more efficiently. It gives us greater agility to meet customer demands and be ahead of where the market is trending. This work was hard on our customers, hard on our shareholders and us, and yet has proven to be correct. The ad server rebuild is an example of our work around development velocity. How quickly can any one team or engineer ship code so we can learn from it and iterate it ahead of the market? This work isn't just focused on our revenue products, but our entire technical stack. You've probably seen news of us entering into new cloud contracts with providers. This is another example of us looking critically at our stack and improving it so we can move much faster. There's some big shifts we're making over the next 2 years, and all these changes will compound in a faster development velocity that lets us deliver more per engineer. Parag, Mike, and Mudge are going to go into this in detail later on today. Second, we agree we haven't been innovative. This is very closely related to the critique of our slowness. If we can't ship code fast, we can't experiment and iterate, and every launch comes with massive expectation and cost. A few years ago, it might have taken 6 months to a year to get a single feature or new product to our customers. While we're in a better position today, consistently bringing this down to under a few weeks is a goal of ours. We made another tough call a few years ago when we decided not to launch anything new and instead focus entirely on our core job, showing people what's happening. Again, this was hard on all of us, but correct in that it enabled us to finally bring new technologies to help solve the main problems people are having on Twitter. Now, the most important of those problems was being able to see relevant tweets without having to scroll endlessly to discover them. A singular focus on this worked and is a key reason we were able to grow our usage again and provided a very strong foundation with which to build new features and products. Innovation isn't just launching fundamentally new or flashy products or features. It also comes in the form of observing what your customers are trying to do and building ahead of them. We're now doing that in a few ways, both for individuals and for businesses on Twitter. For individuals, we're finally building Twitter in the way that people have always wanted to use it, to talk about topics and interest. Being able to follow a timely topic or an enduring interest complements following individual accounts, takes a lot of the discovery work away, and makes Twitter far more enriching and powerful, especially for the long tail of niche topics. If I had to point to one area that will have the biggest positive impact for people's experience and for us as a business, this would be it. Topics and interests are good for businesses on Twitter too, especially for local small businesses, as they provide stronger signals around intent and the ability to serve more relevant ads, which ultimately lead to a transaction, like a donation, a subscription, or a purchase. Mobile app promotion is where we start, and we're gaining confidence with the early results, including more than 50% year-over-year revenue growth in the fourth quarter of 2020. For both individuals and for businesses, we're looking to build a collection of experiences and products that positively reinforce one another, meaning using one feature makes another feature stronger. Take audio rooms, which we're calling Spaces, and long-form newsletters made possible by our acquisition of a review. It's easy to imagine starting with a tweet, moving a conversation to real-time audio, and then recapping the conversation with long-form text. It's this in-between interaction that will prove to be powerful. The same is true for revenue products, as more accessible advertising models will encourage use of commerce tools and loop back into more advertising. Kayvon and Danley are going to talk through our short and long-term plans, and Bruce and Matt will discuss the future of our revenue products and how we expand our offerings to businesses of all sizes. Finally, we agree many people don't trust us. Never has this been more pronounced than the last few years. This isn't just about our actions to promote healthy conversation. It goes broader and deeper, down to how we use technology like machine learning algorithms. And we aren't alone. Every institution is experiencing a significant trust deficit, but we're not going to use that as an excuse. Trust is earned in many ways: transparency, accountability, reliability, choice, and the list goes on. Focusing on improving these four will likely have the greatest impact. I feel we're making a lot of progress with accountability by owning our mistakes and correcting, and reliability by following published principles and not wavering. However, we are lacking in transparency and giving people more choice and control. I would love for us to be one of the most transparent and open companies in the world. I believe this will be a growing trend across all companies and organizations, both big and small. We intend to make our content moderation practices much more transparent, give people more controls to moderate their own interactions, enable a marketplace approach to relevance algorithms, and fund an open source social media standard we call Blue Sky. Vigil will speak to this and our open internet stance later on today. And of course, to make this all happen, we want to think creatively about our brand and also how we build our organization, which Leslie and Jennifer will discuss before Ned goes into how we're going to invest and measure our success. I wanted to end by sharing 3 goals we're holding ourselves accountable to in order to build a company you all believe in as much as we do. First, we plan to double our development velocity by the end of 2023, resulting in doubling the number of features per employee that directly drive either MDAU or revenue. Second, we have a goal of at least 315 million MDAU in the fourth quarter of 2023, which requires continued compounding growth at about 20% per year from the base of 152 million we recorded in the fourth quarter of 2019. And finally, our goal is to more than double our total annual revenue to over $7.5 billion in 2023. This requires us to gain market share with performance ads, grow brand advertising, and expand our products to small and medium-sized businesses throughout the world. We're confident we can hit these goals, and we're confident they will make us even stronger and more valuable to you and people around the world. Thank you again for the time, and I'll be back to answer your questions very soon. And now, over to Kayvon.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kayvon Bakebor, and I lead our consumer product team at Twitter. As Jack mentioned, Twitter's purpose is to serve the public conversation. Over the next 30 minutes, Danley and I will give you an overview of how we want to live up to that purpose through our product strategy and how we plan to measure our progress along the way.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dantley Davis, and I lead design and research at Twitter. Before we dive into our strategy, we want to give you a sense of why people use Twitter today and how we are seeing usage of our platform evolve over time. Twitter is what's happening, and what people are talking about right now. It keeps people plugged into conversations they care about and topics they want to learn more about. It's where culture and news unfold. This has never been more true than over the last year, as Twitter was a critical tool to keep up to date on the latest news from journalists and experts about COVID-19. But it's also been a source of entertainment. It's where people followed along with the NBA bubble and made Baby Yoda into a meme powerhouse. Across news, politics, sports, and entertainment, and even investing, Twitter is a vital space for this public discourse to happen. What happens in the world happens on Twitter, and what happens on Twitter is reflected in the real world. At its best, we believe Twitter can be the conversational layer of the internet.
Our objective is to increase participation in the public conversation. In order to be an effective conversational layer of the internet and to truly serve public conversation, that conversation needs to be inclusive of as many voices as possible, spanning languages, geographies, and perspectives. We believe Twitter is capable of serving billions of people daily, and that the public conversation can be better for it. We're far from that figure today, with around 192 million MDAU in Q4 of 2020. But we've been making steady progress, and we're even more excited about the future. Our top of funnel remains extremely strong, with more than 2 million people coming to Twitter every single day that are people who are either new to the service or who have not logged in for 30 days or more. This consistent top of funnel, combined with the number of product improvements we're making, has allowed us to add significantly more MDAU in each of the past 3 years. MDAU was up 11 million year over year in Q4 of 2018, 26 million year over year in Q4 of 2019, and 40 million year over year in Q4 of 2020. We're not just growing Twitter more every year, but the portion of that growth that comes directly from causal changes we're making in the product is increasing substantially, with the number of MDAU added in each period that were directly driven by product improvements growing almost 3 times over that time. This gives us confidence that our strategy and execution is working. It's important to underscore that the growth and impact you've seen us deliver over the last few years has primarily come through steady refinements to our existing product areas, like refining the relevance of our home timeline. These refinements will continue delivering impact, but we expect the next few years to be even more shaped by an ambitious strategy that will evolve the Twitter experience much more than our customers have seen over the last few years, and one that will deliver even more daily utility for new and existing customers. Today, we want to give you a bit more insight into that strategy. Our strategy falls into 3 key areas, what we call health, interests, and conversations. Let's talk about each. We believe it is essential for public conversation to be healthy. If people don't feel that their conversations are safe from abuse and harassment, we know they won't feel comfortable participating in the first place. And if content on the platform is rife with spam or misleading information, people won't trust the integrity of the platform. Mitigating these risks is critical for us to create the best experience for our customers, and ultimately critical in supporting our growth. Ensuring a healthy public conversation is also essential for our advertisers, who want to ensure that their brand and activity are not active alongside harassment, vitriol, and misleading information. We hear from our advertisers and agencies who tell us how important health and safety is for brands and their users, and they know that Twitter is fully committed. For all of these reasons, increasing health has been an essential focus area for years. Increasing health requires focus in 3 key areas: product, policies, and enforcement. I'll cover what's happening at a high level across these areas, and later, Vijay will speak to the philosophical underpinnings that we use to guide those policies and our enforcement. Our policy and enforcement work focuses on deterring abuse and harassment and addressing harmful, misleading information. Across both of these areas, we've made a number of important advancements. First, we've simplified our rules so that people can more easily understand what we do and do not allow in the service. Before, our rules were long, complex, and rarely visible within our product. Today, they are crisp enough that they can each fit in a tweet. Second, we've expanded our policy and enforcement to address the rise of misinformation around the world. Our policy expansion includes guidelines for COVID-19 related misinformation, a synthetic and manipulated media policy that prohibits the use of manipulated media on Twitter that may cause harm, and an updated civic integrity policy that prohibits voter suppression, voting misinformation, and misleading information intended to undermine public confidence in an election. We've also focused on enforcing our rules proactively. A few years ago, very little of our enforcement was proactive. Today, around 50% of our rule enforcement is done proactively, including through machine learning-based automation, without our customers needing to experience the burden of abuse or harm prior to us taking action. Over the last year, We've developed new product capabilities that allow us to broaden the spectrum of enforcement decisions that we're able to make beyond the binary take down or leave up. These new capabilities include the ability to label tweets that are misleading, label accounts with context, and the ability to de-amplify and limit engagements on certain tweets through likes, retweets, and replies. Throughout the US election period of October 27th through November 11th, 2020 alone, we labeled around 300,000 tweets under our civic integrity policy and limited tweet engagements on approximately 456 of those. We saw an estimated 29% decrease in quote tweets of these labeled tweets, due in part to a prompt that warned people prior to sharing. And approximately 74% of the people who viewed those tweets saw them after we applied a label or warning message. Our effort to add context and encourage thoughtful amplification isn't limited to just misleading information either. We've also found that simple prompts that encourage people to read articles past the headline alone before amplifying them have demonstrated impact. These prompts, for example, result in 33% more people reading an article prior to retweeting. And we found that 50% more people cancel their retweet after they read the article that they were about to share. This is one of the many solutions we plan to implement to encourage more thoughtful amplification, which in turn should increase health. Beyond using our own algorithms and processes to enforce our rules, one of our key areas of focus within health is to empower our customers and the community to scale safety. We don't believe Twitter alone can or should be a police officer for all conversations, not only because this is difficult to scale, but because there are many circumstances where we believe it's important for people on Twitter to create and enforce their own social norms and etiquette, and to exercise more control around who can interact with them on the service. Because what people may consider unhealthy conversation may not actually be against our terms of service. This is why, for example, we've built conversation controls, which enable people to decide who can reply to their tweets, and a way to hide unwanted replies to their own tweets. We're seeing this feature used particularly amongst people who have reported experiencing harassment in the past. In those cases, these people are seeing an estimated 85% reduction in toxic and abusive replies. We'll continue to build on this foundation to give people new ways of controlling who can interact with their conversations. We're also exploring smarter tools to proactively help people stay safe from unwanted interactions. An example of this is recognizing when somebody's getting dogpiled and providing them more powerful and intelligent blocking capabilities to defend themselves from an overwhelming degree of intense interactions. Another area where we're exploring the power of decentralized moderation is through Birdwatch. While our work in labeling misleading information started with a Twitter-led effort to label tweets, Birdwatch is a more scalable, Wikipedia-like model where an open community of contributors can collectively determine when context should be added to a tweet and what that context should say. Finally, we know that a common frustration we hear from customers is that they don't know who they're interacting with on Twitter. Is this account a real person, a bot, a business? Is this person who is claiming to be notable actually that person, or just an impersonator? Twitter accounts have always been uniform, allowing for anonymity and expression, which leads to all kinds of awesome use cases, but we think we can improve this. So we'll be expanding our taxonomy of account types on Twitter: people, bots, automated accounts, and businesses. Each of these accounts will have different attributes and capabilities. This should both enable interesting new use cases and increase the integrity of interactions of the service, since people will have more context around the type of accounts they're interacting with. We'll continue to remain steadfast in our focus on health as a critical tenet of our strategy. We don't believe we can serve public conversation without ensuring that the conversation is healthy, and we believe that a healthy Twitter is critical to growth. Let's move to another critical part of our strategy, which we call interests. We know that one of the main reasons people come to Twitter is to stay informed about their interests. Whether you're interested in college football, politics, or Japanese anime, Twitter is the best place to hear the latest about what's happening. But despite being such a fundamental reason why people use Twitter over the last decade, it's actually been historically quite difficult to do this on Twitter. For years, you had to find content about your interests by proxy of following people, rather than specific topics themselves. If you knew what to search for, and if you knew who to follow, then Twitter was magical. Follow Draymond Green, Steph Curry, the best sports journalist, and Draymond's mom, and you'd have yourself a great Warriors Twitter experience. But that takes time, and that's a lot to ask of people who are new to Twitter. Solving this is critical. Making Twitter better at connecting you to your interests will be a fundamental unlock for our growth. We expect it will significantly increase retention among both existing accounts and people who are newer to the service. And it will meaningfully improve our advertising capabilities over time due to us having a better understanding of people's interests. I'll share some context around how our work on interest began, and then some detail on where we're headed. Our work on interest started in late 2018. First, we made it easier for customers to toggle between seeing the latest tweets in reverse chronological order or letting Twitter show them the most relevant tweets. This is a simple change that gave people more control to tune Twitter to better serve situations where a real-time feed was critical. We also bolstered the list feature, allowing people to more easily create a customized list and more easily share them and pin them to the top of their home. These changes have helped make it easier for people to segment their usage of Twitter in creative ways that resemble their interests. We've seen the number of customers following lists double in the last year as a result of these changes. And in October 2019, we debuted for the first time followable topics. This was the first time that people could tell Twitter that they were interested in a certain topic and have Twitter do the work of recommending and surfacing the most relevant content for that topic. We believe topics is a critical and fundamental shift to the product, and that the topic graph will grow to be as critical and valuable as the follower graph. While we are still early in the life cycle of topics, we're confident that topics will be a meaningful and durable driver of MDAU growth. One of the most promising indicators we look at is the engagement rate on topical tweets. We're seeing that tweets that are recommended via topic follows receive substantially more engagement than tweets that are recommended by account-based follows. Topical tweets have an 8.2% engagement rate versus 3.8% engagement rate for tweets from account-based follows. These metrics and our qualitative research tell us that people are finding value in following topics. And we're already seeing causal evidence that topics is increasing our daily active usage. This makes us feel very confident that we're placing energy on the right bet here, one that'll meaningfully improve the ability for people to find the most relevant conversations that map to their interests, increase our daily usage, and improve our advertising capabilities. We're still in the infancy of our work here. Here are some of the areas you can expect us to continue focusing on. We'll continue to massively scale the number of topics that are available. While we have over 6,000 followable topics today, we expect this to grow to hundreds of thousands over the next few years, offering a pervasive selection of topics relevant in different geographies and languages. We're heavily investing in machine learning to continue improving the relevance of topical recommendations. We know through our efforts in improving home timeline ranking just how impactful this investment is. We see substantial value and impact through continued relevance improvements in our topical recommendations. We're also continuing to evolve topics with more controls, like allowing people to fine-tune the volume of each topic in their timeline, pinning certain topics to the top of their app, similar to lists, and making them more pervasively accessible within the product experience. Beyond topics, there are a number of other ways that we're helping people stay informed about their interests. I'd like to give you a glimpse of one of these efforts. You haven't heard us talk publicly about this until now, but we're sharing a glimpse to give you a comprehensive overview of how deeply we're focused on helping people find and talk about their interests on Twitter. One of the special things about Twitter is the diversity of micro-communities that form around different interest spaces. We see this across a broad range of verticals, be it the plethora of passionate stan communities around certain K-pop bands, communities centered around providing skincare advice, or superfans of Tesla, and even social and political movements. These communities form ad hoc with little structure in our product beyond hashtags, which speaks to the fluidity and openness of Twitter. But it also makes it difficult to find these communities, and even more difficult to have more focused conversations within those communities. Twitter has undoubtedly proven its ability to serve the global public conversation, particularly during large-scale events, but we must improve at letting people have conversations that are more targeted to the relevant communities or geographies they're interested in. For example, today could feel tone-deaf to talk about a hobby or interest amidst the intense global public conversation about the pandemic, and it remains difficult to target your conversation to a captive audience of people who care about the same interest. We're working on solving this problem by creating a product experience that makes it easier for people to form, discover, and participate in these micro-communities. And then an experience that enables creators to customize these spaces, including setting and enforcing social norms above and beyond our terms of service. We see this as a highly complementary product experience to topics. With topics, Twitter is creating a taxonomy and graph that connects people to the content, people, or communities they're interested in. You'll see us experiment publicly and transparently, much like we did with topics, spaces, and fleets, starting later this year. Hopefully, this gives you a helpful overview of the work we're doing to better connect people to their interests.
As you heard us emphasize, our purpose is to serve the public conversation. Conversations, which are tweets, fleets, and DMs, are the lifeblood of our service. The core atom of content that enables people to see what's happening in the world on Twitter is a person using their voice to say something in public. We believe it's essential for the world and for Twitter to increase the number of people who feel comfortable participating in the public conversation. The goal of our conversation strategy is to do just that. We're focused on two specific things: enabling new use cases for conversations on the service and rethinking the incentives of the service. Let's talk about the first. We believe that new formats can enable exciting creative use cases for conversations, and that some customer demographics will be more drawn to formats and use cases beyond text. One of the ways we're enabling new use cases for conversation is through fleets. We launched fleets as a way for people to share their fleeting thoughts. They enable people on Twitter to create more content with less pressure. Since the content doesn't get public replies and also disappears after 24 hours rather than being on the public record indefinitely. And also with less judgment, since fleets don't have publicly visible engagement metrics such as likes and retweets. Our goal is that fleets serves as a way for more people to feel comfortable talking in public. We're still early here, but we're encouraged by what we're seeing. Fleets is increasing the total net number of conversations, which we define as tweets plus fleets, driving a significant increase in direct messages, which are people using fleets as a springboard for conversation, and that fleets has been particularly impactful in driving conversation and content creation amongst people who traditionally do not tweet. We also have observed that fleets are more than 85% media, which are photos and videos, which is significantly different than the mix that we see with tweets. That tells us that fleets are giving people on Twitter an outlet for a new mix shift of content. And because Fleets sits at the top of the app, it provides a foundation for us to build new conversation formats without interrupting the core Twitter experience. Another focus area for us is Spaces, which we released into public beta in December. With Spaces, we provide people a new way to connect directly in an intimate conversation space, using their voice. The human voice can bring a layer of connectivity, emotion, nuance, and empathy that is often lost in text. We're still early in beta, but we're very excited about this new capability and how it can potentially allow experts from around the world to convene to talk about sports, entertainment, politics, or just hang out and enjoy each other's company. Another way we're enabling new capabilities for content creation is through long-form written content on Twitter. And in the future, you'll not only be able to just follow an author, but subscribe to their newsletters as well. We view Twitter as uniquely positioned to help writers grow their readership much faster and at a much larger scale than anywhere else, which is why we acquired Review, to enable writers to publish paid or free newsletters to their audience. Many established writers and publications have built their brand and reputation on Twitter, amassing a built-in audience that is hungry for the next piece that they tweet. We plan to make it easy for writers to connect with their subscribers on Twitter. opening up new opportunities for readers to interact with a community that shares similar interests. We also think that an audience-funded model where subscribers can directly fund the content that they value most is a durable incentive model that aligns the interests of creators and consumers. Review is one exciting example of this model within the Twitter ecosystem, amongst others that we are also exploring. We see other impactful opportunities provide monetary incentive models that allow creators and publishers on Twitter to be directly supported by their audience. You'll see us explore solutions here like tipping and account subscriptions through superfollows. This work is part of a broader theme of rethinking the incentives of our service. Audience funding models, by virtue of allowing talented content creators to earn from their audience, motivates them to continue creating great content that their audience loves. But our focus is also to ensure that we're evolving our product so that it incentivizes and amplifies healthy and positive discourse, and that it disincentivizes toxic and jerk-like behavior. We won't be venturing on this journey alone. We're continuing to make significant investments in our developer API to allow third-party developers to improve the creativity and functionality of our platform. Some of the most impactful features on Twitter came from a very passionate developer community. As we evolve our platform, you'll see developers introduce everything from new tools for moderation to expressive creative formats.
Hopefully this gives you a helpful overview of why we're focused on health, interests, and conversations. We want to emphasize that a central part of our strategy is to ensure that we're improving Twitter in these dimensions globally, not just in the regions where we have large adoption. In order to achieve our ambitions, we need to grow Twitter in developing markets in the world where there are hundreds of millions of potential customers, but where we have very nascent adoption today. Regions like India and Africa are great examples, where we see very promising growth rates. In India, for example, we saw 74% year-over-year MDAU growth in Q4 of 2020. And in Nigeria, we saw 84% year-over-year MDAU growth. To accelerate and capitalize on this growth, for the first time, we're putting in place in-market product design and engineering teams in certain emerging markets. We expect a meaningful portion of our future growth to come from emerging markets, and that local teams and expertise can help us make this happen faster. So you've seen what we're planning, but how will we know that our strategy is working? Ultimately, we measure our long-term success through our ability to grow monetizable daily active usage, MDAU. It's important to understand that it takes time for product changes to impact daily usage patterns. So for each part of our strategy and each feature we work on, we use specific leading indicator measurements that tell us whether we're solving that customer problem. For example, with topics, for leading indicators of success, we look at the number of topic followers that we acquire, how we retain these followers, and the incremental increase in tweets that topic followers liked. With simplifications to our onboarding flow, we look at the impact of these changes to retention over time. With our misleading information labels, we measure the number of tweet impressions without and with the misleading info annotation on it, with the goal of minimizing the former. With conversation controls, we look at the number of tweets being created with controls enabled, the rate at which those are replied to, and the rate at which those tweets are reported for abuse. As you can see from these examples, there are a variety of metrics that help us gauge whether our product solutions are working. But in aggregate, the best way to measure our success is MDAU. If we measurably solve customer problems over time, more and more people will come to Twitter every day. With our product roadmap, we believe that we can substantially grow Twitter's daily audience. In March of 2020, before the pandemic, we shared our ambition to grow MDAU at 20% a year. Our goal is to deliver 315 million or more MDAU by Q4 of 2023. That will require continuing to compound growth at about 20% per year from the base of 152 million MDAU we reported in Q4 2019. Now, it won't be a straight line from here to there, with exactly 20% year-over-year growth in every quarter, as events and product improvements impact our audience growth at various times, with the substantial increase related to COVID-19 we saw in 2020 serving as an example of this. That said, we are confident in our ability to drive significant growth over the next few years. So how will we get there, and how does all of our work add up? We'll continue to build on our bedrock of ongoing product refinements, like improving the relevance of our recommendations. This steady, compounding iteration has helped durably grow Twitter over the last few years, and will continue to improve our product experience. On top of that, we expect that our strategy across interests, conversations, and the work we're doing to make Twitter better in emerging markets will yield immense impact, significantly more than we've been able to achieve with our more iterative refinement of the product over the last few years. We expect this work will increase our top of funnel by virtue of making Twitter more appealing to new audiences, and will improve our retention by virtue of making the product even better for people to stay informed and talk about their interests. And as a foundation to all of this, our work on health will help increase the integrity of the public conversation, which is instrumental to keeping our customers safe enough to want to participate in the public conversation in the first place. Hopefully you share our excitement for this strategy and our focus on health, interests, and conversations. But you may be wondering, how fast will we actually execute against this strategy? I want to talk for a moment about our pace of execution. I can tell you with conviction that Twitter's historical pace of execution is one of the things that was most frustrating for me and one of the things we've been most passionate about solving. But don't take it from me. Take it from our customers. A couple of years ago, it was common for us to see quotes like this from Casey Newton in 2018. Why does Twitter move so slowly? Nothing defines Twitter so thoroughly as its bias towards inaction. And yet, the company's history suggests that it hasn't failed for lack of thinking. The problem, rather, is that thinking has so often served as a substitute for action. Our customers were frustrated because it seemed like we were moving slowly to evolve the product, that Twitter felt stagnant while the world around it was evolving quickly. Well, we've been hard at work to change that. Over these last couple years, we've been evolving the product in more transformational ways, solving bigger problems for our customers, and moving way faster than we have before. To illustrate this, here's a calendar of some of our product launches over the last 2 years. We've been picking up the pace, and we see our customers noticing too. Here's Casey Newton again in November of 2019. Twitter is finally backing up its talk with action. After years of delays, the company is finally shipping meaningful features, and at a surprising clip. And fast forwarding to just a few weeks ago, again from Casey Newton, Twitter has announced more product launches and changes today than it did in all of 2014. What's allowed us to do this is we've had a clear, bold, and consistent strategy to reshape Twitter. A strategy that calls for bigger changes and solving bigger problems than ones the company has taken on in the past. We've also hired new leaders across product, engineering, design, and research. Not just high-caliber talent, but people who are filled with the energy and ambition to reshape Twitter. But we've got more work to do, and we're just getting started. We've been making meaningful investments across our infrastructure and technology, which we expect will pay off through further increases in the pace of our product development. These investments are critical because growing our daily audience requires us to be able to build and ship products quickly. You'll hear from Mike, Mudge, and Parag later on how we're increasing development velocity at scale. Important initiatives that support all of the work we do on both the consumer product and revenue product, while also keeping consumers' security and privacy in mind. With that, now I'll pass it on to Vijaya, who will share more about our approach to policy.
Thanks, Kayvon and Dantley. I'm Vijaya Gaddy. I lead the legal, public policy, and trust and safety teams at Twitter. In addition to providing legal support for Twitter, these teams are responsible for developing and enforcing our platform policies and engaging with external stakeholders such as regulators, legislators, and civil society groups around the world. As Jack mentioned, our purpose is to serve the public conversation, and we believe that public conversation is better when as many people as possible can participate. Earlier, Kayvon highlighted some of the great work that our cross-functional teams are doing to promote the health of the public conversation on Twitter. Now, I'd like to talk to you about the philosophical underpinnings of our policy and enforcement work and how we hope elements of our approach can provide a good starting point for discussions about a regulatory framework for the internet. Our policies are built primarily around the promotion and protection of 3 fundamental human rights: freedom of expression, safety, and privacy. These rights, among others, are enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is an international document adopted by the UN and numerous countries around the world. At times, these fundamental human rights can be in tension with each other. To address this tension, our rules attempt to establish an appropriate balance, prioritizing safety above all others. We believe deeply in and advocate for freedom of expression and open dialogue, But that means little as an underlying philosophy if voices are silenced because people are afraid to speak up due to threats to their physical safety or privacy. Even though our content policies are grounded in an international human rights framework, they are also living documents that need to adapt to changes to behavior on and off our platform. Every day, millions of people around the world tweet hundreds of millions of tweets, and we need one set of rules that apply to everyone and every tweet. We strive to implement policies that scale, that are respectful of local laws, and that account for cultural nuance and norms. We solicit direct feedback from a number of stakeholders when developing and updating our policies, including civil society groups, academics, and government officials. In order to make our policies more durable, we have also begun to solicit public feedback from the people using our service about new policies and changes to existing policies. We did this most recently with our verification policy, and this is a practice we would like to leverage even more in the future. With regard to enforcement, we seek to enforce our policies in a consistent, transparent, and proportionate manner. The public and global policymakers have told us they want to be better informed about our actions, so transparency is fundamental to the work we do at Twitter. Our ability to bring transparency to our enforcement work allows the public to assess if we've acted in a fair, impartial, and consistent manner. Our aspiration is to prevent or take action on content that violates our rules before people see it. In order to do this at scale, we need to leverage machine learning to identify and prevent content that violates our rules from spreading and causing harm. However, this technology isn't perfect and never will be. Mistakes are inevitable. As human communication evolves, so too will this technology. As more and more of our enforcement is automated, we need to continue to invest in a simple and quick appeals process so mistakes can be addressed quickly. With regard to our enforcement actions, as Kayvon mentioned, we've been developing a broader range of remediations, including interstitials, account labels, tweet labels, and de-amplification, all of which allow more speech to remain on the platform while providing a toolkit of enforcement actions that can be tailored and proportionate to the violation. Transparency, consistency, and proportionality are key to building trust in our enforcement process. Ultimately, all of this ties back to the work we do across policy, product, and enforcement to improve the health of the public conversation on Twitter. There is significant interest in content moderation policies and enforcement by governments around the world. In 2020, we saw a broad acceleration in proposed legislation related to content moderation, privacy, and data protection. We expect that trend to continue in 2021, and we think it's important that you, as shareholders, understand our principles around these important topics, which will be discussed and debated around the world for the foreseeable future. We're in a highly dynamic global regulatory environment. We see the conversation around Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act in the United States and the Digital Services Act in the EU. But these discussions around privacy and online content are happening all over the world. As you know, Twitter is a unique public forum for public conversation and debate. Twitter's public conversation and the access to information it enables is underpinned by a free and open internet. As debate around the world focuses on how to solve public policy challenges related to the technology industry, our approach to regulation and public policy issues is centered on protecting the open internet. We define the open internet as a global and singular internet that is open to all and promotes diversity, competition, and innovation. We believe the open internet has driven unprecedented economic, social, and technological progress. And while not without significant challenges, it has also led to greater access to information and greater opportunities to speak that are now core to an open society. We have identified 5 key pillars that will be central to our advocacy. They represent the foundations of the open internet, an internet we believe that can be rights-based and, most importantly, durable in the face of innovation and the new realities of our online life. These 5 pillars are universal access through open standards, algorithmic choice, transparency, competition, and consumer choice around privacy. I want to address each of these pillars separately. First, recognizing that the open internet is a core driver of economic and social development, Twitter will support forward-looking approaches to regulation that protect the open internet and universal access. We support regional and global efforts to harmonize standards that provide for a global internet framework and protect free expression. These standards go far beyond defining different types of content. We believe in the adoption of technical standards that embed openness and interoperability. To accelerate efforts here, Twitter is funding a small, independent team of open source architects, engineers, and designers to develop an open and decentralized standard for the public conversation on the internet. We call this Project Blue Sky. Ultimately, the hope is that Twitter will be one of many clients of this standard, and it can become the bedrock of a new democratized way of building services that can connect us. This team will not only develop a decentralized standard for public conversation, but also build an open community around it, inclusive of companies and organizations, researchers, and civil society leaders, all of whom are thinking deeply about the consequences, positive and negative. If successful, the adoption of this standard could allow us to access and contribute to a much larger corpus of public conversation in the long term. We would then be able to focus our efforts on building open recommendation systems, which promote healthy conversation and access to credible content. Second, we believe the regulatory debate needs to reflect how content moderation is now more than just leaving content up or taking it down. The fundamental question of how people find content and how it is amplified is more important than where and how content exists. It can no longer be seen as a binary debate. As well as the regulatory focus on content types and moderation systems, we believe it is essential that consumers are given more control over the algorithms that shape their online experience as part of a forward-looking policy approach. Twitter's decision to include such a control on our home timeline highlights how users can be empowered without undermining the service. Third, openness and transparency will remain core to Twitter's approach. Transparency is embodied in our open APIs, our Information Operations Archive, and our disclosures in the Twitter Transparency Center, and we will encourage policymakers to expand transparency requirements to enable greater accountability. We've gone further than our peers, offering a COVID-19 endpoint to empower public health research and a new academic platform to encourage cutting-edge research using Twitter data. This is one of the reasons you hear more about reports featuring Twitter as core to the research methodology. We empower it. Fourth, competition is critical for our industry to thrive, and we believe that the open internet is at risk of being less open as it becomes less competitive. Interoperability protects both public choice and competition and is a policy tool that has significant potential. We are urging regulators to factor into their decisions a test of whether proposed measures further enhance the dominance of existing players or set insurmountable compliance barriers and costs for smaller companies and new market entrants. Entrenching the dominance of the largest companies serves no one, not our customers, our investors, or the societal values we cherish. Finally, because we believe privacy is a fundamental human right, we will continue to advocate for choice with respect to privacy and data protection. We support regulatory proposals that enshrine thoughtful, innovative privacy protections into law. An internet structured around consumers' meaningful privacy choices will always be more open than one built around a business model that depends on accumulated stores of data for their own use. These 5 pillars of the open internet will drive our policy and regulatory discussions around the world. For example, in the United States, we have encouraged Congress to work with industry and civil society to build upon Section 230's foundation, whether it be through additions to Section 230, industry-wide self-regulation best practices, or a new legislative framework. By doing so, we can build an adaptable future internet that people trust by empowering technology companies to continually make necessary changes to policies, services, and products, as well as experiment and learn to improve their platforms and services. We believe the principles we use at Twitter to build trust with the people using our service can be broadly applied to the industry and build upon the foundational framework of Section 230 for how to moderate content online. These principles include transparency, fair processes, empowering algorithmic choice, and protecting the privacy of the people who use our service. And we believe a collaborative approach to regulation in the United States can avoid potential pitfalls. For example, completely eliminating Section 230 through reactionary government speech mandates will neither address free speech concerns nor align with the First Amendment. Indeed, such actions could have the opposite effect, likely resulting in increased removal of speech, the proliferation of frivolous lawsuits, and severe limitations on our collective ability to address harmful content and protect people online. And it's not just Twitter that would be impacted by eliminating Section 230. You can imagine there are numerous other types of companies or services that are dependent on public content and would be significantly impacted, ranging from Wikipedia to commerce sites that accept product reviews and news sites that allow comments on articles. Likewise, amending Section 230 solely through carve-outs for certain content types will inevitably favor larger incumbents who may willingly embrace such changes, as we believe only a few giant and well-funded technology companies would have the resources to thrive. For innovation to thrive in our industry, we believe it is not in the best interest of society to entrench the largest companies further. A level playing field is critical. As you've heard today, Twitter's purpose is to serve the public conversation. And we believe that the global public conversation is dependent on the open internet. We believe that protecting the open internet is vital to fulfilling the potential of the internet as a global force for good and driver of economic growth. And we will be directly advocating for policies and laws that protect the foundations of the open internet. With respect to our content policies and enforcement, Twitter's approach to content moderation is deeply rooted in an international human rights framework. We seek to protect the health of the public conversation in a fair and consistent manner that is transparent to those using our service. And we believe all of this work is foundational to the continued growth of mDAU and revenue over time. I hope what I've shared with you today has been helpful in understanding our approach, and I look forward to taking your questions.
Welcome, everyone. We're now going to start our first live Q&A session of the day. We have our product, design, and policy leads with us. Joining us are Kayvon, Dantley, and Vijaya, and I'd also like to invite Jack and Ned to join us as well. Give us just a few seconds to bring our first analyst up on camera. And while we're waiting, as a reminder, you can tweet us your questions at @TwitterIR using the hashtag #TWTRAnalystDay. We're going to start collecting questions in the background now. And while we're waiting for the first person to come on camera, I'll take a question from our email inbox. This is a question from Yusuf Squally at SunTrust. He has two questions. The first one is on the audio social platform. Twitter has been a text-based platform since inception and has conditioned users to rely on short-form content to communicate from one to many. How difficult is it to bridge the gap with a new long-form, audio-based platform that is one to many? What competitive advantages do you bring to the table?
I can take that. I think the important thing to realize is we're focused on public conversation as a use case, and that use case is going to have multiple formats associated with it. We started with text, mainly in short form. We have been expanding to long form with review. We are looking at audio in spaces. All of these things have common characteristics, but slightly different formats. And what's important is that we continue to focus our main work and our main efforts on how to discover these conversations and look for new opportunities that these new formats provide. I think we focus a lot of our attention on the various parts of public conversation, but I think the real power is what exists in between them. And as I said in my opening, there's a very powerful consideration when you look at the ability to tweet something out, to take it into audio, to have a conversation, and then to recap it in long form. So you get to reach multiple people in a format that respects whatever context they happen to be in the moment. And that is what our focus is going to be, is that power of the intersection of all these formats. All that said, we are traditionally a broadcast medium, and we think there's a lot of opportunity in switching that to narrowcasting as well. You saw a little bit of that today with the community's work, but obviously audio spaces is another great example of narrowcasting, and we think there's a lot of power there for people that we're seeing elsewhere, and we think it belongs naturally on Twitter.
Great, thank you, Jack. And we now have our first analyst to come on camera. This is Brent Thill from Jefferies. Brent, please go ahead.
Great, thank you. Back to the goal of doubling the company's revenue, when you think about the growth rate you have to hit at 26%, you have to go back to 13, 2015 to look at that growth. Can you just talk a little bit about your confidence and what's giving you that underlying confidence in this goal to achieve that revenue target? Thank you.
Hey, Brent, I'll jump in quickly here, but I'm also going to point you to the presentations you're going to hear in a little bit from Matt and Bruce. There'll be a lot more to share around our revenue product priorities and then how we'll take them to market with advertisers and beyond. So I'm excited for you to hear all of that, and I don't want to get too far in front of it. But if you just step back from some of the details you'll hear about, the pace of execution, the clarity of strategy, the work that this team has led to put us in a position to be able to invest in multi-year timeframes and to share the goals that we've got over multi-year timeframes are foundational to a lot of the work that Matt and Bruce will share. So if you still got the question after you hear from them, we're delighted to have you come back on and talk more about it.
Great. Thank you very much, Ned. While we're waiting for the next analyst, I'll take another question from email. This question is around our NDAU guidance of 315 million by the end of 2023. And they ask how much of that relies on new platforms like Spaces versus current offerings.
I'm going to jump in. Kayvon's having technical difficulties, and so normally this would be a great opportunity for him to share more. When you think about the billions of people who live in the world who don't use Twitter every day, and you think about the really strong DAU growth that we've been able to show in countries where we have a very strong presence, like the US, Japan, many countries in Europe, and then examples like those that Kayvon shared, where we've delivered really strong growth in the recent past, such as India. There are so many opportunities in terms of people who come to Twitter every day, who can get more out of Twitter than they have in the past, or if they haven't tried it before. And there are so many product improvements that we're working hard on in order to make sure that they have a great experience when they come to the service. They find what they're looking for, and that they trust the information they see. It's not about specific goals and how much one product or another may contribute. It's about the combination of all of them and this massive opportunity to serve Twitter to a much larger audience.
Thank you. And we have our next question is coming from Mark Shmulik at AllianceBernstein. Mark, please go ahead.
I hope you can hear me. So my question is, if we think about the goal of 20% kind of user growth over the next several years, there's certainly, many opportunities to get there. Some of the few that were mentioned, like expanding into international markets, driving better top of funnel conversion, and also driving deeper engagement, with existing users. Is there any color on how you think about prioritizing across those three areas in terms of, really where the bulk of the opportunity lies? Thank you.
I think we continue to remain focused on the core of Twitter. Like we get so many gains just by focusing on providing more relevance within the timeline. As I said previously for a previous question, a lot of our work is ultimately going to come down to discovery. One of the reasons we're so focused on topics and interest is because it takes a lot of the friction away from people having to find and follow all the accounts that are associated with their interest, but always don't speak and tweet to their interest. So putting that more front and center unlocks a ton of content, unlocks a ton of interaction, and it also unlocks our ability to show off some of the new use cases and show off some of the new content that we're building right now, such as what we're doing with Spaces, what we're doing with newsletters and long form, communities, fleets. So a lot of the magical work is ultimately going to be in our ability to provide better discovery mechanisms for people to find what they're looking for as quickly as possible. And that's not just while they're in the app, it's while they're signing up for the app as well. When they first download the app, as soon as we can get them into a topic that's relevant to them, and as quickly as we can to get it to more local relevance as well. One of the things I'm really excited about in terms of topics and interests is we're not just focused on conversational topics, we're focused on locations as well. So as we get that to be more finer grain, we go from cities to regions of cities to neighborhoods we get a lot more potential for people to engage, and we get much greater intent and signal for our business and for advertisers, especially for smaller and local businesses and advertisers. So if I had to point to one area of investment that's going to be the most meaningful, it is going to be interest in topics and all the discovery of all the other aspects of our ecosystem that hinge off that.
Thank you, Jack. And our next question comes from Lloyd Walmsley at Deutsche Bank. Lloyd, please go ahead.
Great, thanks. So, Jack, you laid out a goal of doubling development velocity and mentioned it took a few years ago to launch a new feature. The goal is to get it down to a few weeks. The question is where are you today in terms of that velocity? And aside from improving the tech platform, how do you culturally address the issue Casey Newton pointed out about kind of thinking being a substitute for action?
Yeah, I'll take the second question first. In the past, we were trying to do way too much. And as you know, when you try to do too much, you end up doing nothing well at all. So we lacked a lot of prioritization. We took a really difficult path many years ago when we decided not to ship any new features and instead focus entirely on relevance and our core job of the home timeline, making it better and better every single day through faster and faster iterations. That was a great case study for our ability to move the needle in small ways, but over a week-by-week basis. Every week we shipped something that improved our system fairly dramatically. And that built a really good foundation for us to be able to focus the team and focus the culture on really making sure that we have a good understanding of what the use case is, what might improve it, and ultimately what to look for as to whether it's positive or negative. And we stopped the behavior of creating a number of products or features that we put a lot of expectation around. They ended up being very big launches, and we ultimately didn't follow through with the launches at all. So we got into this launch equals success mindset instead of launch something small, experiment with it, build it up, look for the patterns that people are using it, how they're using it, and then build towards that and build ahead of that ultimately. So I think from a cultural perspective, we're in a much better place, especially around our prioritization and our focus. In terms of where we are today in developer efficiency and the ability to get our features and products out, I would say we've come an extremely far way on the revenue product side. We still have some work to do on the broader side of all consumer products, but as Kayvon showed in his presentation, that is in an uptick, and we are able to move not only with smaller features faster, but with bigger product consisting of multiple features much faster. I will look to the Spaces team to showcase this right now. The team is moving super fast, and the thing I'm most proud of is they're doing all the development in the open. They're showing off our proposed designs, they're taking feedback, they're pairing that with our own intention and with our own ideas. And this entire development of this product is happening in public. And I would love for all of our products to be built that way, because not only does it set the expectation of where we're going, it gives us much greater ability to take feedback, and it also holds us publicly accountable to speed and getting things out there much faster when we're showing things off. The newer aspects of it, people want now, and that puts a lot of pressure on us to get it to them as quickly as possible. So all of our incentives are aligned here, and as we make more structural changes, like looking more towards cloud providers to speed our work and looking for more consistent developer tools, all these things compound into a much faster rate of execution.
Great. Thank you, Jack. We have time for just one final question, and this question comes from Michael Levine at Pivotal. Michael, please go ahead.
Thanks for the question, guys. So one thing I found really striking, Jack, in your kickoff on the presentation was about the ad server rebuild. Like, I wonder if you guys could explain this a little bit better, since I think of ad server rebuild is maybe a misnomer, as it sounds to me a little bit almost more like an architecture rebuild. Because I get that question a lot from investors, and it just sounds to me that this is enabling greater feature shift. It sounds like it's a bigger architecture rebuild. So maybe you guys could edify that a little bit. I think investors would find that helpful.
Yeah, you're spot on. It was definitely an architecture rebuild. I mean, we had to look at the system we built over 7 years. A lot of it was, it started off great, but as things grow, you add things, and you add a few more things, and those new things interact with the older things in unpredictable ways, and you have newer people coming on to our system, and you have engineers leaving who may have known how to fix this if something went down. We decided to just completely start from scratch with the goal of providing more velocity in our development. And the reason this is important is if we can build these small experiments faster, get them to our advertisers so that they can test them, they can play with them, and they can give us feedback, we can iterate much faster. So the architecture was focused on allowing us to experiment faster, to give us a much stronger foundation that could scale to the biggest events. And we were able to pass that test with the Super Bowl last year, where we didn't see any degradation in our service, and we were still able to continue to develop new features and new products, and specifically turn our focus onto MAP and general performance advertising. So we are benefiting a lot from that new architecture. And there's other aspects of our service more broadly that will benefit from new thinking around the architecture and maybe entirely new architectures as well. We don't think we have to do those complete reboots as much again, but as we look more towards the cloud, it does unlock a lot of development speed for us. And we will benefit a lot from being able to get engineers who are very familiar with cloud services, ultimately pulling us to a much faster development cycle in the end. But we'll speak more to this after Bruce and Matt's presentation as well.
Terrific. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you all for all the great questions. We're now going to take a quick break. And when we come back, our sales, revenue product, technology leads will talk about the great work that we're doing to increase revenue durability and development velocity. So thank you, and we'll see you shortly.
Hi, I'm Matt Dorella, and I lead the customers team at Twitter. We help advertisers, content creators, mobile publishers, and developers contribute to and benefit from what's happening on Twitter. In my role, I lead all of global sales and sales operations, driving revenue, partnerships, and country operations.
Hi, I'm Bruce Falk, and I lead the revenue product organization at Twitter. My team is responsible for building revenue products so that Matt's team can help advertisers and businesses harness the power of the public conversation to achieve their business goals. We're going to take you through our goal to more than double our revenue over the next 3 years to reach at least $7.5 billion in 2023. We call this strategy revenue durability. We'll make our business more durable by building new, enduring revenue streams, starting with performance advertising, on top of our strong brand business. While we do see performance ads as a stepping stone to future monetization potential like e-commerce, our immediate focus is going to be on the massive opportunity to increase our overall share of the global ad market.
As of today, approximately 85% of Twitter's $3.2 billion in annual advertising revenue comes from brand advertising budgets, which focus on marketing objectives at the top of the funnel, like interest and awareness. Only 15% of our ads revenue comes from performance or direct response advertising, which focuses on the remainder of the funnel where the customer takes an action, everything from an app download or a site visit to actual purchases. Let me put these numbers into better context. The global advertising market at the end of 2020 was $490 billion. Digital advertising, where we participate, accounts for roughly half of this market, or $280 billion. And this is the ad category expected to grow the most in 2021. Within the digital ad market, the brand and direct response, excluding search, represents roughly $150 billion of opportunity in 2020. And we believe DR, which we also call performance advertising, is larger and growing faster than brand, especially considering the acceleration toward e-commerce we've seen in the past year.
Twitter currently owns less than 3% of that $150 billion market opportunity. While our strategy includes a roadmap for monetization beyond advertising, we can make progress on our goal and gain ad market share simply by bringing our existing performance products to parity with other DR offerings in the market. As we do this, we believe we can go from an 85-15 brand performance mix towards a 50-50 mix over time. We're confident in this because of pent-up demand we see every day from our customers. We're constantly pursuing new and additional partners to help them achieve their performance marketing goal. 50-50 is a long-term vision. Our growth doesn't depend on a mix shift, but it's a great indicator that we're creating value in both brand and performance advertisers. Go deeper into how we capitalize on performance ads opportunity and more. But first, Matt will zoom out and share broader context around how we serve our customers worldwide at Twitter.
On the business front, customers around the world depend on Twitter to connect with consumers and grow their business. We have large advertisers and small and medium-sized businesses who use Twitter's ad platform when they're launching something new or connecting with what's happening in culture. Professional content creators partner with us to distribute content on Twitter that perfectly pairs with the public conversation and helps them build audience reach and complementary revenue streams via our Amplify programs. You may be familiar with our innovative partnerships with the Olympics, the NFL, NBA, to name a few of the more than 200 partnerships that we have in place around the world that generate hundreds of millions of revenue for us and for our partners. Mobile publishers drive incremental growth via our mobile ad exchange, MoPub, a platform which also enables us to extend advertising demand from Twitter to mobile publishers via the Twitter Audience platform. And developers leverage our anonymized, aggregated Twitter data to build and enhance their businesses through our developer and enterprise solutions. We have a strategy to grow revenue and market share by investing in our core brand advertising business, where we have great momentum, while expanding our boundaries, as Bruce mentioned previously, to include more performance advertising use cases that unlock very large and growing addressable markets with both our existing large customers and the millions and millions of businesses who already have an organic presence on Twitter. Now, we can only achieve success with our amazing customer-obsessed teams who are recognized around the world for their customer-first approach. Our teams are located in 25 markets, and with our partners, we serve customers in an additional 93 more. Across all revenue in 2020, the US accounted for approximately 55% of our ad revenue. Now today, roughly 85% of our revenue comes from advertising, with the remaining 15% derived from a combination of MoPub, our mobile ad exchange, and DES, our data product. As Bruce mentioned, the largest revenue opportunity for our business over the next few years is advertiser-based. So I'll focus most of my comments there today. Within advertising, our large customers channel accounts for a little more than 85% of our ad revenue, while our SMB channel accounts for a little less than 15%. We believe that our advertising revenue can grow meaningfully from here, while also being more balanced between these two sales channels. As such, we are now investing in the product and the sales team to more aggressively capture this SMB opportunity. Now that we have that context, I'll explain more about our core ads business by sharing why the most important brands around the world, including 100 of the Ad Age 100, hire Twitter ads. Then we'll talk about what we're doing to capture the immense opportunity in performance ads that will fuel additional revenue growth, diversification of advertisers, and revenue predictability. Twitter is what's happening and what people are talking about right now. It is the indisputable home for real-time public conversation for sports, music, entertainment, technology, gaming, business, and seismic cultural shifts. Across all interests and passions, Twitter is where the magic happens. It's like a water cooler, comedy club, and sports bar, all wrapped into one. The variety and richness of the conversation gives Twitter an outsized advantage in helping brands launch something new and connect with what's happening. Now, we define launch as building awareness and interest for something new. And we don't mean just a product launch or a movie release. I'm talking about launching a new positioning, a brand extension, a new promotional campaign, a new app. We have proven, tailored solutions for each of these use cases by vertical all around the world. We define connect as building relevance by being part of the conversation. This could be extending a sponsorship, being part of an event, a TV campaign, or simply part of the everyday conversations that matter to your customers. Today, we've earned a place in the room with customers in every vertical and sub-vertical around the world, helping them build their overall marketing strategy with the help of the insights from the world's largest real-time focus group, Twitter. We now deliver real-time insights about conversations happening on Twitter, fueling campaigns where our platform is the foundation and the through line for their entire marketing strategy. When Wendy's introduced their breakfast menu to the world this past year, we analyzed over 17 million tweets that we see every morning about breakfast to drive a multi-platform campaign that started on Twitter and traveled into the physical world, informing Wendy's overall strategy that included tweets in TV spots and on their billboards. This campaign drove a 46% increase in conversation about Wendy's on Twitter, as well as a 6x growth in their share of Twitter's daily breakfast conversation. Exposed audiences to the Wendy's Breakfast Battle campaign on Twitter demonstrated a 17-point lift in visit intent and a 19-point lift in purchase intent. And with Twitter as the lead social partner for this campaign, sales for Wendy's were up 15% in the week after the breakfast launch.
Advertisers like Wendy's have told us that measurement is the foundation of any successful brand or performance ad campaign. This is why we're making meaningful investments to both our first and third-party measurement solutions. Twitter Brand Surveys, our first-party measurement solution that launched in late 2019, helps advertisers understand how their ads affect metrics like awareness, consideration, and purchase intent. Advertisers that use Twitter Brand Surveys saw an average increase in 21 percentage points for ad recall, 7 percentage points for message association, and 6 percentage points for consideration. While our first-party measurement solutions drive confidence in ad effectiveness on Twitter, most advertisers rely on third-party measurement reporting for objectivity. To that end, we've recently announced a partnership with Newstar, and we'll announce one soon with Nielsen for multi-touch attribution, targeted for Q3 of 2021. These partnerships help both brand and performance advertisers understand how Twitter ads play a role in the consumer purchase experience. Beyond improving measurement, we're enabling better personalization. We've recently made a number of critical improvements to our ads personalization, and we have planned to invest more in this area. In 2020, we conducted a series of personalized ads win-back events. We now have 20% more accounts that have opted into seeing personalized ads versus what we had a year ago. This allows us to serve more relevant ads, creating better experiences for the people who use our service, and driving better ROI for advertisers. We see personalization as an opportunity for Twitter. We still have many consumer signals like topics, lists, and search that we can better leverage within our delivery systems to improve ad relevance. For example, building audience targeting segments based on search results. As we build trust and we deliver value for people on Twitter and increase our personalization rates, we can give consumers a better experience and advertisers more value.
These updated offerings continue to prove effective for brands who want to launch something new. And this past year, the revenue product team rebuilt our entire suite of takeover products to deliver more scale and impact for our advertising partners. Our signature timeline takeover product, First View, puts your video ad first at the top of the Twitter timeline. Next, our new Promoted Trend Spotlight. This puts brands front and center at the top of the conversation in the Explore tab, where people go every day to see what's happening. Together, these two combine to create the ultimate high-reach, high-impact launch package, producing our biggest 24-hour reach ever, with up to 120 million video impressions over 24 hours, capitalizing on the growth and delivering a 76% higher ad recall for our customers.
These are fixed-priced, reserved products. Thanks to our audience growth and to recent improvements, the First View product has increased impression targets by 72% on average in our top 10 markets. Given the massive increase, we've raised prices and takeover products in most markets by over 20%. As we grow our audience and we continue to improve reach, as well as improve our ad formats, we'll continue to have an opportunity to raise price and to reflect the value that we're delivering. A key part of driving brand awareness during launch campaigns is getting your ad in front of as many people as possible. In December of 2020, we launched frequency caps, which allow advertisers to control the number of times someone sees an ad and reach more of their target audience. We found that campaigns with consistent frequency over 4 and 12-week periods saw an increase in up to 18% in brand lift.
When it comes to driving awareness and launching something new, we are always bringing more creative ways to drive engagement on Twitter thanks to the product innovation. We're in beta with Branded Likes, an exciting new product that will be widely available later in 2021. Branded Likes is a new ad format that allows brands to customize the like button with animated brand imagery. Not only does it spark joy, but it drives results. Early testing shows big impact on two critical business indicators, brand recall and favorability. Let's take a look at how it works. And video has continued to evolve on Twitter, now including live streams and carousels.
These carousel ads use multiple images or video that consumers swipe sequentially. When testing the carousel versus a single asset format, website carousels averaged a 15% increase in click-through rate, and app carousels averaged a 24% increase in installs per impression.
And we expanded professional video services to help brands build the most effective creative for these new canvases. Video formats have been more than 60% of our advertising revenue for several years. Taken together, these product and service enhancements have secured our position as the place to launch something new and set us up for continued growth in core brand advertising. When I talk to CMOs around the world, they're struggling with breaking through and being relevant with their messages. Media fragmentation is making it harder and harder for brands to be relevant with their customers. Unlike other digital media, Twitter is a complementary conversational layer to all forms of media, making Twitter the best place for a brand to be part of what's happening, from TV shows to tentpole events, to sports, holidays, movements, and trends. That's why, as an example, nearly every Super Bowl advertiser buy ads on Twitter to complement their campaign. In fact, during major televised events, usage drops on almost every other platform. But on Twitter, it increases. We saw 3 billion tweets about sports around the world this past year, and many were about the NFL. For the past 2 seasons, Bud Light has successfully leveraged Twitter to engage with NFL fans and drive cultural relevance through a custom content program called #BudLightCelly of the Week. In partnership with the NFL, Bud Light aligned with the top touchdown celebrations and gave fans the opportunity to vote for their favorite every week throughout the season. Not only did this drive tons of fan engagement, it also drove a massive amount of conversation, During the 2020 regular season alone, the campaign drove over 127,000 program mentions. And that conversation in turn generated millions and millions of impressions, successfully modernizing their traditional sponsorship and making Bud Light an integral part of the NFL conversation. As Azania Andrews, VP of Connections at Anheuser-Busch says, Bud Light is the official beer of sports fans, and helping fans celebrate their favorite teams and players is key to our sports partnership strategy. Twitter is both a key platform for sports conversation and an official content partner for many leagues, so it was the perfect home for the Bud Light Celly program. We were able to leverage our team and player relationships to deliver highly relevant and engaging content to millions of fans.
And to support brands like Bud Light, who want to connect with what's happening, we've developed curated video categories, a brand-safe and engaging way to match advertisers with thematic, premium content that best aligns with their target audiences. Demand is strong. Advertiser participation in the beta doubled between Q3 and Q4 of 2020, and revenue also doubled during that same time. Earlier this year, we also redesigned our pre-roll video format to improve the user experience by including advertiser logo and content previews. Based on our early research, these changes should increase ad recall by up to 20%. So when we have ads before highlights from the Olympics or the NBA, we'll have an even more immersive experience, leading to higher advertiser ROI.
And because of all this, we see in customer feedback that we are the leader in the US when it comes to connecting with what's happening and aligning brands and products with cultural moments. Heading into this year, we're confident about growing our strength in both launch and connect for a few clear reasons. We're growing our audience. We're seeing accelerated consumer shift to digital. We're creating new ad formats that are launching at a faster pace. We're improving our ad relevance. We have innovative content partnerships, and we're seeing an accelerated shift of TV ad budgets to social video. We're thrilled with our leadership position in brand, and we can further gain market share as we grow usage and continue to innovate with new ad formats, better relevance, with branded likes as a great example. At the same time, performance must become a significant part of our future. Better performance products will give us more access than ever before to that performance addressable market. And as Bruce mentioned earlier, 85% of our ad revenue today comes from brand advertising, while just 15% is derived from performance-based advertising. Across that $150 billion branded performance ad market, Twitter currently occupies less than 3% share. Twitter can win significantly more share of this digital ad market with scalable, performance-based ad solutions. The first vector to grow share will come from meaningfully growing our average revenue per advertiser for our large customers. Call that the top 1,000. We've organized our large customer team by vertical and sub-vertical expertise, and they're embedded with our customers' businesses, organizations around the world. We're already working with them on all of their major launches. We're working with them on connecting to key events. We're helping them leverage Twitter data to make better decisions. And we hear consistent feedback that they want to invest more with us through lower funnel opportunities such as MAP and eventually e-commerce.
And this is exactly why we're accelerating our performance roadmap by expanding and improving our app install and website clicks and conversions offerings. These help advertisers drive to their app or website in order to eventually convert users. We launched our mobile app promotion or MAP product earlier this month. MAP is the first step towards unlocking always-on performance dollars and accelerating our performance revenue growth. These MAP improvements and our ability to accelerate our performance plans are possible thanks to the hard work of our engineering teams. Between 2019 and mid-2020, these teams rebuilt our ad server, which improved our underlying ad infrastructure. This work wasn't glamorous, but it accelerated our ability to build products, and it puts us in a position to achieve future product breakthroughs and to catalyze our performance revenue growth. Over the first 6 months of 2020, before the project was done, we shipped 56 products and product improvements. We finished the project in June of 2020, and over the next 6 months, we nearly doubled that to 100 products and product improvements. This is another area where focusing on the fundamentals can unlock and accelerate more growth for us. After the ad server rebuild finished, we started rolling out part of our new MAP solution in the second half of 2020. We're encouraged by the improved results. MAP revenue was up more than 50% year over year in Q4, generating approximately $95 million in revenue with a roughly $1 million a day run rate. While we've had a MAP product in the market since 2014, this new and improved offering allows us to serve app developers of different sizes in expanded categories with significantly better performance. In Q4, Map ad impressions grew 80% year over year, thanks to improved campaign management, ad placement, bidding, and optimization. The Map revenue and impression growth are the results of the hard work to build stronger foundations and should keep accelerating as we continue to innovate in this area. Our new Map solution benefits from improved prediction models, which is how we decide the best possible candidate for a given ad. We launched Learning Period, which allows our prediction models to optimize ad delivery against the most valuable audiences during the first few days of a campaign. With Learning Period, our tests have shown a 39% improvement at the rate at which new campaigns gain enough audience insights to optimize campaign performance. The recent improvements are already paying off for our customers. In mid-2020, DraftKings, a daily fantasy sports brand, ran an app install campaign to drive new first-time depositors for the return of sports campaigns. The goal was to drive app downloads and then to get new users to deposit funds. The campaign was incredibly successful, and they increased their first-time depositors by 162% year over year.
DraftKings also previously launched other products on Twitter with similar success. And here's what they said. These recent improvements are already paying off for our customers. In mid-2020, with the return of the NFL and the NBA, DraftKings connected with growing sports conversation on Twitter to drive engagement within its app. DraftKings leveraged Twitter's performance ad product suite to generate strong customer acquisition and increase the positive sentiment and mentions.
As we continue to develop Map, we're mindful of the potential impact that Apple's upcoming changes to IDFA, or Identify for Advertisers, could have on our performance roadmap. We're innovating quickly around IDFA, and it's still too early to tell exactly how this will impact the industry, but it will be felt by the entire industry. We're confident that our brand advertising strength, combined with our improving performance products and months of preparation, leave us well positioned to continue to help advertisers meet their goals. Our recent integration with SK Ad Network, Apple's proprietary measurement solution, allows us to measure actions taken by audiences without IDFA. This new capability will allow advertisers to reach 30% more devices on Twitter right now. And it's going to make our business more durable once Apple enforces IDFA changes later this year.
And here's another recent real-world example of the success we're seeing with the Map improvements that Bruce just talked through. In Japan, Uniqlo wanted to drive users to their e-commerce experience this past year as part of their 36th anniversary. The e-commerce purchases required downloads of their app, which was successfully executed on Twitter. Uniqlo launched the campaign on Twitter, leveraging our launch solutions. But that was just the start. They also used our improved Map product to exceed their return on investment goals, leading to share shift to Twitter from competitors and a 19% year-on-year increase in total spend, as well as Map investment that is up 6x versus last year. Uniqlo's Japan head of digital marketing said it best. Twitter is a critical partner to Uniqlo Japan whenever we launch a new campaign. Recently, with the improvements in their ability to drive lower funnel actions, Twitter has now moved into the consideration set for more direct response campaigns, such as mobile app downloads or driving sales. Once again, this is early evidence of the massive upside we have with performance ad budgets. This Uniqlo campaign is an example of how standard optimization of our performance products can yield exponential increases in direct response investment. My team is on the ground with advertisers, and the opportunity we are capturing with Uniqlo is available to us in every market around the world as we nail our performance product suite.
Making ads on Twitter more useful and actionable will help us succeed in performance. In the process, we'll increase the depth of our partnerships and the breadth of our customer base around the world. It'll drive more growth, better diversification, and increased revenue predictability. Our website clicks and conversions product contributes significantly to our performance revenue base. This contribution should increase as we build products that drive more efficient and measurable outcomes like signups or purchases on our customer's website. To complement our efforts in Map, we've been rebuilding our website clicks and conversion product and will continue this work in 2021. Earlier this month, we launched Twitter Click ID, a parameter added to Twitter ads that improves our ability to attribute site visits. This is a step to future-proof our business. And while it's not unique to Twitter, it'll help us remain competitive and expand our DR offering as the industry evolves.
In our latest findings during the beta, we saw a 10x increase in attributed site visits. Advertisers frequently rely on this metric to compare performance across platforms and to guide investment decisions.
We also made several meaningful changes to ad formats that are frequently used by website clicks and conversions advertisers to help improve the ad experience. By adjusting the location of the video player controls and improving web page load time, we further improved site visits by an additional 8.6%. While we're pleased with the progress that we've made with website clicks and conversions, we're definitely not done. This year, we'll test multi-destination carousels, a highly requested feature that can drive users to multiple websites. And we'll continue to refine our conversion optimization models and make sure that we're delivering the most valuable audiences for our advertisers. We're following the same playbook here that we used for MAP. We're taking an established but underperforming format that's in high demand with many advertisers today. We're upgrading it and enhancing its capabilities, and we're continuing to drive innovation to give Matt's team the tools that they need to deliver for our customers and to grow our revenue.
Let me help put this work that Bruce's product team is doing into tangible context with a recent SMB example. In this website clicks campaign, female-founded fashion startup LaFleur offered customers up to 50% discount on their best-selling products as a reward for voting or encouraging others to vote in the 2020 U.S. presidential election. Customers had to share a photo or a screenshot or a story of them participating in voting in order to receive the promotional code. LaFleur's goal was to bring a